You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name, Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. We have time and again mentioned how R. Kelly will have to be compensated for any wrongful accusations and convictions he has been subjected to, but first he has to exhaust all opportunities available to contest such convictions through appeals and other avenues. It hadn't crossed my mind that the strike back at government's careless mistakes will come sooner than we expected. It turns out that Derrell McDavid is taking the forefront in this campaign, seeking compensation from government equivalent to US $850,000 for the legal fees he incurred when he was dragged to court for no good reason. In a previous video we published addressing the vague R. Kelly RICO charges, we mentioned that the reason government prosecutors were tempted to drag Derrell McDavid and Milton June Brown to court was to justify their previous claims of RICO violations against R. Kelly back in the Brooklyn federal court. With no way to prove an enterprise, their only hope of proving that R. Kelly worked with a team of people who helped him commit crimes as alleged was finding the two co-accused guilty. By getting greedy and wanting so much more in terms of years R. Kelly should spend in prison, the government prosecutors made a number of mistakes, and these are already beginning to cost the government, which now must compensate Derrell McDavid to a tune of $850,000, money his lawyers suggest he spent on legal fees defending himself against the bogus accusations. While it's okay for government to prosecute crime, it's not acceptable that the prosecutors allow to be driven by sentiments, considering they have been entrusted with the power to determine whether some people live their lives or spend their entire lifetime in prison. Prosecutors actually do have the power to determine whether some people live or die, considering some states still have a death penalty for certain criminal offenses. Having a non-independent and easy-to-manipulate prosecution like the one currently dealing with R. Kelly issues can prove detrimental to the order of society, and also cause loss of the government resources. Many of us tend to confuse the role of prosecution as simply bringing defendants in criminal cases to justice on behalf of the state, and this makes many imagine that prosecutors are powerless. But truth be told, the government prosecutors are technically a lot more powerful than the judges themselves, because it's them that decide what charges to place against the defendant, subsequently predetermining what the sentencing is likely to look like. A corruptible team of prosecutors is therefore a great risk to justice and a threat to the community, considering they can choose to take away a father, mother, caretaker or important person in society for life, putting a sudden end to all the good works and support their beneficiaries have been enjoying. By forcing certain charges on R. Kelly such as RICO, therefore, they are technically telling his children and other dependents of his, "We are sorry, but you will no longer receive the love and support from the R&B King, considering we have chosen to take away his final years that he would otherwise share with you." This is why prosecutors are usually required by law to take oath and commit to always perform their duties fairly, consistently and expeditiously in accordance to the law, in the hope that they can contribute to the smooth functioning of the criminal justice system. In R. Kelly's case, however, the prosecutors have operated like they have something personal to gain from stealing his freedom and existence away from him. They have made it their business to try and fail him. The prosecutors have behaved as though they are the complainants in this case. This clearly is not what they are mandated to do. Another threat to justice that was embraced by the government prosecution was the surviving R. Kelly documentary. The big question that is still unanswered until today is, since when did a documentary become the legal basis for the US justice system, or even other courts around the world, to place charges against the character defined as wrong by the series? If this was the way to go, the late Queen of England, Elizabeth II, would have died in prison for murder, or at least charges placed. There was just enough media presence comprised of multiple documentaries that claimed the royal family should have been behind the death of the famous princess. But because the British government knows better than that, they did not overreact. We all know well that the media's main agenda, and more so when it comes to film productions, is always largely to entertain. For a purely entertainment channel as Lifetime to publish a documentary against a renowned artist and go as far as availing it on Netflix, and I repeat on Netflix, and thereafter charges of this nature are filed, not only sounds bogus, but also unprecedented. When it's R. Kelly being witch hunted, however, this becomes acceptable. Very ironic, isn't it? According to Mona Lisa Backstrom, it's high time the government started paying for their silly mistakes. Sadly though, it will be taxpayers' money compensating McDavid, but either way, R. Kelly has more to lose to the same ruthless government, and therefore any deduction from that amount in form of government payouts, especially for their mistakes, is an okay thing. They need to understand that their attempts to overthrow the Constitution will always cost the government. Hopefully that way they can revise their way of doing things. R. Kelly will eventually appeal the convictions, and when he succeeds, they will compensate him in millions. If the government hadn't been greedy to get more out of the case against R. Kelly, perhaps he would have to serve a much shorter jail term, and it would be a win-win situation. When they decided to override the laws and overcharge him, they tilted the landscape of the case towards R. Kelly. When the landscape tilts back against the government, however, it will be a landslide of damages to be paid to him. For now, we await the appeal process to kickstart. According to Renee Lard, I pity all those people who chose to team up with government against R. Kelly, for they will eventually pay a price as no one will ever believe them. This is probably the reason prosecution is currently considering dropping the state charges against Robert. They have realized they started a war that they may not find easy to accomplish, and they are now technically retreating. However, R. Kelly on the other hand will overcome and rise again. His talent is going nowhere, and God is evidently on his side. The judicial officers may choose to put the law aside and sentimentally judge the R&B king, but this will not stop God's will. According to Jennifer, I am quite sure that these people who had made it their core business to tarnish the R&B king thought the covers would never be pulled back on them. And now it's happening. It's a damn shame what these people did to R. Kelly. If they have to pay a price, it's all well deserved. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.